So Jenny is joining us from Sweden. She lives in Sweden. She is an AMI Montessori 12 to 18 and 6 to 12 trainer. Jenny travels all over the world as an AMI trainer, directing courses and speaking at various conferences. She founded a Montessori school in Sweden in 1995 that serves children from infancy through adolescence. She brought all the practices recommended by Dr. Montessori for the education of adolescents into action through the residential farm school community that she founded and established. Her pioneering work with adolescents at this school has helped shape the Montessori approach for this important phase of child's development. Jenny has dedicated her whole life to working with children and adolescent students. I can say that with surety because I've experienced that myself. She's dedicated her life to the training of adults like me who want to become, people who want to work with children and adolescents. She's been training all of us as a Montessorian, a true Montessorian. She's doing a lot of work in India since some time now and has taken 2 diploma programs, which has helped in new adolescent environments setting up in India. And now very soon, she's taking the 3rd Montessori course starting this June in Chennai at Supraja Montessori Study Center, offering the 12 to 18 diploma course. This is a wonderful opportunity for all of you, those who are looking forward to get trained in the Montessori pedagogy to work with adolescents. I highly recommend that all of you here consider enrolling and also sharing about this opportunity with friends and family, and those of you who know who would like to pursue something like this. The team at Supraja will be sharing the details and the links with you soon in the chat. There is another 12 to 18 diploma course that will be offered later this year at MTRT Hyderabad. The full details of the course are yet to be finalized, and you can connect with the Institute for more information. And now let's listen to what Jenny has to share with all of us. I'm sure you're all eagerly waiting for that. Thank you so much, Jenny, for being here with us.
Thank you, Niti. I think, and good morning to all of you, wherever you are. Yeah. You know, it's Niti said a lot of things there, and it's a privilege to be here with you, for me, because to me it's always such a pleasure to be able to share something that is close to one's heart, to my heart. And I'm always very thrilled to see that there are others who are interested in listening and wanting to hear, and maybe also are interested in what I think is important in terms of Montessori work. And we're going to talk about why Montessori matters. And of course it does matter. And I think that is why that is what gives you the energy to do this work when you have worked with children. I worked with children since 1982. Children, elementary children and adolescents mostly. And of course, when you can see the difference it makes to the children and how they grow and how they flourish in environments that are there for them, that gives you energy, and you just want to make sure that as many children as possible can be as privileged as those children who actually already have the privilege to attend to a Montessori environment. I'm busy with a diploma course right now here in Sweden. And yesterday I said to the students, because we were talking about the fourth plane, the adults between the age of 18 and 24. And I told them a little story about many years ago that I had a parent. I was then working in Children's House, and he came to me one morning with a newspaper clipping, and he said, "Jenny, I think you will enjoy this." And on this newspaper clipping, there was a quote, and it said, "All of us are born as originals, but most of us die as copies." And I had to think about that for a while, and I still need to think about that. Because to me, after having spent years in the traditional school setting, I was thinking that sadly, yes, this is probably true. Became clear to me that while working in this traditional school setting, that there has to be a different way to approach children, to approach young people, because they are born as originals, and they should have the privilege and also the right to develop as they were intended to develop. So each and everyone can become, me, so we can be the persons we were meant to be. And then, almost by chance, I found Montessori, and that changed everything. And of course, Montessori added an extra dimension, not only to my life, but also to my, but also to being a pedagogue or an adult working with children and young people. And I think what Montessori, her discovery, that was so important, that when she understood that there are more to children than we think, that they are born with a potential and possibilities to make something of themselves, something that traditional education does not really seem to pay attention to. Sometimes I think we need to ask ourselves what we wish for our children. What kind of adults would we like them to grow into? And I usually ask parents that at the school, and the qualities that they mention are qualities about being good people, good, honest, respectable, respecting, responsible, independent people, kind and helpful. And I find that's interesting because then at the end, they might mention that maybe they also need some knowledge. But it's good to hear that they are not just focusing on the head here, but also the importance of the work, to be able to work with one's hands, to also have the heart in there. And I think what we in Montessori environments are trained and understand to be so important is to see that each and every child is this unique individual, and that they need to be respected as such. And that as adults, whether we are parents or teachers or other adults in the lives of the children, we need to respect the power and potential of the child. And then Montessori recognized that children at different stages in life learn in different ways. And because of this, of course, then education needs to correspond to those different ways of learning. Education has to make it possible for the children to develop naturally as nature has intended. Which means that education has to correspond to the characteristics of the child and the adolescents. To understand where they are in life and understand the psychology of the children and adolescents in such a way that the approach taken can support the development. To support the development, but also give the children this self-confidence and this respect that they can feel when they feel that they are understood and treated as an individual and not as one of our students said, who came from a traditional setting, that one is not treated as one of the 537 others, but you are treated for whom you are, the person you are. Another hallmark of Montessori is that she was interested in all development. She was interested in the whole individual. She did not just pay attention to the development of the intellect here. She had a very holistic view. She understood that all aspects of an individual need to be paid attention to in order for that individual to develop in a harmonious and wholesome way. So therefore she pays attention to not only to the intellect, but also to the physical, the moral, the social, emotional, and spiritual aspects of development. And the goal was, or is, a fully functioning, independent adult who can live harmoniously with respect and responsibility for themselves and for others and their environment. So education then, from a Montessori point of view, should be an aid to life. And it's not just about school and learning to pass exams and to get grades, receive good grades, but it's about you as a wholesome individual that will be able to fend for yourself as an adult and will be able to see yourself as an asset to society once out there. An adult who will not be marginalized in society because one has a clear understanding of who you are, your capabilities, your strengths, and also maybe your weaknesses, but also have learned to compensate for those weaknesses, and has the understanding what it takes to be a fully functioning individual in today's society, with the quality of adaptability. Because after all, today the world seems very unsure. Everything seems unsure. And what is true today might not be true tomorrow or next week or next year. And we also then need adults who are able to adapt, who are flexible, and who will understand what changes there needs to be in order for us all to have a positive future. We need adults who have developed a relationship with nature in such a way that we understand the importance of paying respect to our natural environment from where we get so much of or many of our resources, because our future depends on that. And the Montessori environments help in this direction. And I think that's what's so brilliant about Montessori. Not only that she understands how to approach children and adolescents at their different stages in life, but also to give them firm foundation that will help them face whatever they will meet later in life, and will help them become these lifelong learners where they understand the importance of knowledge and how to use knowledge in a positive way. So Montessori education then is truly an education to life. So in order to help life, it is essential to give the necessary support to our children and adolescents. And as I said, this includes an educational environment where they can flourish and develop as nature has intended. And this is development that happens through work, through study, to encounter, while encountering knowledge in such a way that it will build one's personality as well as one's intellect. And of course, all of this starts at birth and in the home. And we know that the first 6 years of life are of extreme importance, because this is where the child adapts to his or her environment, his or her culture, the traditions, the beliefs, the customs they find in their space and also time. It is a time of great formation, not just physically in terms of body changes and movement, but also in so many other ways. The child constructs him or herself as an individual. And children, we know, they are by nature active. There is this spontaneous activity. And by offering them possibilities of an environment in which they are allowed to be active through their senses, using both their hands and their minds, we support development. The hand, such an important instrument for the mind to develop. And very often we deny children to move around. We deny them to touch. We deny them a lot of things when they really are very capable and they need to use their hands in order to develop. When children are allowed to work at their own pace, and when children are active We tend to call that work. And work, of course, can have many connotations. I'm talking about developmental work here. I'm talking about work because it gives the activity value, and it gives the activity the child does dignity. And that's why I think we call it work. So they need to work at their own pace until they have reached a level of satisfaction. And thus these young children will develop concentration. And when given the opportunities to do work, they will also develop a love for work. And this love for work will stay with them throughout life, if it has been allowed to develop. And a love for work then also extends to a love for one's environment, because the children come to understand that their work comes out of their environment, and therefore they start to develop a responsibility towards their environment. And this love for work also brings on a love for study. Because when you want to undertake work, there also comes this understanding that in order to do some work, you also need to have knowledge in order to carry it out. So this work, love for work, also brings on a love for study. And that's really beautiful to see when that happens in an environment. And being part of a community from a very early age, first the community of the family, and then also venturing out to a community with other friends, they will also develop socially and morally, which will support not just self-discipline, but also sociability. The self-discipline that teaches you patience, that maybe you have to wait for your turn. Maybe you have whatever you would like to work with is being used by someone else. And therefore the need is there to respect the work of that person and allow that person, my friend, to do his or her work. Community, and I said it will develop sociability, a community that is built on affection for one another, where the children, who by nature are helpful, kind, and generous. And then I think, to allow them to continue in environments where these qualities like helpfulness and kindness and generosity will stay with the children. And I think in a Montessori environment where this is being fostered in such a natural way that one can be in service of each other. And I think this is exactly what we are hoping for, isn't it? Also with our adults. Because that would change so many things if we could think about others before me. So the children are in these environments that provide so many opportunities, not just for the children to take care of themselves, but also others and their environment. They require what we call functional or practical or physical independence. They can actually fend for themselves. They can take care of themselves. And it's important that we allow them these opportunities. And in these environments, they are also introduced to language and mathematics that are two intelligences that we are born with. And they require and develop their language skills. And they are introduced to mathematics at a time when they are interested both in language and mathematics. And many of the disciplines that the child will encounter later in life will have their origin during the years in this first Montessori environments. And because of the environment being prepared to suit the children and their needs, the children can be independent and not have to rely on an adult. Children come with energy, and this energy can be supported or it can be obstructed. And when there is an environment for these small children, young children, an environment where they can reach things by themselves, where they can find their own clothes in the drawers, where things are in proportion to their size, they become independent and they don't have to go through an adult. And this gives them self-confidence. A small child, we say, is saying, help me to do it by myself. And if they are in a properly furnished environment with what is necessary for their development, and they can be independent in this environment, free to move and to work and to make choices, they will develop this independence. So when the children grow and move into the elementary, we have already a very accomplished young child. And now, of course, the child shows very different characteristics, and therefore they also need a different environment and they need a different approach. And this is a time when the children can learn intellectually more than she or he can learn later in life. And I think very often we underestimate the capabilities, not just of these young children, but also of the elementary children. Which means that there is really no end to what we can offer. And we do offer a lot. We offer all the disciplines in a very interrelated way, which helps the child to understand that life is not compartmentalized into isolated compartments of knowledge, but life is integrated. And they get a first-hand experience of the interdependency of everything living and non-living. And through materials that the children are offered, they get concrete experiences that they will abstract from. And this is already something that was laid a foundation for in the first plane, working with these materials. And the children in the elementary, for whom the materials are, as for all children, developmental material. I think this is important for us to know. They are not there for the adults. They are for the children. And they are a point of departure. And then the children can reach abstraction by themselves, because we can never reach abstraction on behalf of the children. They have to do it themselves. And they will arrive at this point of arrival in terms of abstraction, in terms of understanding how things are related, how things work, and understand concepts that otherwise would be very abstract for them, such as formulae and rules, for instance, in mathematics and geometry. These are discoveries for the children. And when they find out things for themselves and how things works, and can understand and state their own formula, for instance, those are the discoveries that are not only very satisfying to the children, but it's knowledge that will stay with them for life, because it was their discovery. And that is knowledge that will be retained. I think when I worked in the traditional school, there were so many formulae and rules and whatnot and other knowledge for children to memorize. And they never understood why, because that was not really what was asked of them. And those were, of course, also situations, because we were all used by textbooks that would state formulae and rules for the children, and not allowing them to come or to arrive at them by themselves through their own understanding and through their own exploration. Children in the elementary are interested in why and how. And they are given the time to explore and investigate in such a way that they can reach these conclusions by themselves and thus come to their own understanding, which is really important, because they need to become independent thinkers. We don't want for our children to depend on others' thinking, but have access to their own minds and have a clarity of mind, because they understand and they have the knowledge themselves. And they also become independent doers. They don't rely on an adult to tell them what to do every day and what to choose or not to choose. Because the children, they do know. And when you have the opportunity to work according to your interest, of course you will do the work, and you will be engaged, and you will be focused. And when this happens, and this might sound a bit utopian, but it's not. When this happens, yes, they do follow interest, and they have a freedom of choice here in terms of work. But they grow to enjoy all kinds of work and study. So it's not that they will shy away from other work. It's not that they will spend their entire elementary years doing just mathematics or something else. Because, as I said, they are presented with knowledge in a very interrelated fashion. And they very quickly understand that in order to maybe work with this and come to a conclusion here, I have to use other knowledge as well. And of course, they also have this support of the adult who will inspire to help illuminate all aspects of life for the children. Elementary children, yes, I said that they will become independent doers. And they come prepared from their first environments. And elementary children are very capable of organizing themselves. They can run their own environment. And they can be also in charge of themselves and their environment. They also take care of themselves, the environment, and others. So they also have their community. But their community is, yes, there is affection, but they are also bonded by this intellectual work, because the elementary children love to work together, and they need to work together. They need to form their own groups and do that, and do work as a group, which of course will serve them well when they enter into adolescence. So when they are, let's say, at the age of 12, they come with a very strong foundation that has been laid during the first 12 years. They come with 12 years of construction of themselves as an individual, and they come with 12 years of experience. And Montessori, she argues that children who leave elementary at the age of 12 should be at least 2 years ahead compared to the traditional school. And I actually think this is true if we adults allow them to do the work and the study that they need to do. And if we don't hinder them, because we think that some knowledge can be saved until later. But as I said earlier, the elementary children love work. They love to work, and they love intellectual work. And we are just being an obstacle if we prevent them to do the work that we probably don't think them capable of. So the children entering into adolescence have created their potential. And now they need to realize it. And this is at a time, puberty or adolescence, which can be a difficult time for them. They need to prepare for adult life. They need to understand what it takes to become socially and economic independent. And this at a time when they seem to lose their fondness for study. This is a time for when the hormones start to act out. This is a time of emotions and sometimes turbulence, because they do have energy. They come with energy, but they don't know how to use this energy. And they have more energy than just being pinned down to a desk to study. So they need a very different environment. They need different work. And they also, of course, need to study. And they will study because they are still intelligent. They will study and they will focus and they will concentrate. And they will love their work if it makes sense to them, if it tells them something about themselves, if it is related to something that is personal to them, or if it is related actually to an interest or to something that they would actually like to do. So then they need to be in environment that will offer work, where they will see work, an environment that the work can stem out of, an environment that the adolescents can be in charge of and have ownership of. And then they will, if that environment is there, then they are able to identify work that can happen in this environment. And that is how also studies will happen. Because this is a difficult time for them, when their minds are rather delicate and fragile, Montessori says that they need protection. Not only do they need to understand how society works in order to become a well-functioning adult, but this understanding cannot happen through a textbook. So Montessori suggests that in order for them to be able to practice what it takes to be part of an adult society, in order for them to have the opportunity to be protected from the hustle and bustle, she says, of the cities, and maybe also the culture, the adolescent culture that is prevalent. She suggests that they need to be in the country for many reasons, where she suggests fresh air. She also suggests that the country and being on the land will give them the opportunity to grow their own food so they can have nutritious food grown locally, very locally, and where they can have the opportunity for work that not only will strengthen their minds, but also will strengthen their growing bodies. Because if they are to prepare for adult life, they need to somehow experience what it takes. And adolescents, they want to be considered as adults. And sometimes I think we make life very confusing to them, because we sometimes treat them as children. We tell them they are too young to do something or to understand something. And then the next minute we tell them that they should have known better because of their age and how old they are. Being so old, they should have known better. So they want to know about adult life, but they don't really have any experience of it. And the family, and they still love their family. In their family, they usually have a very defined role, which makes it a bit difficult to them to experience life the way they need. So Montessori then offers them this environment on the land, in the country, where they can live together, creating their own mini society, experiencing how one can sustain oneself, what it takes to earn some money in order to fend for oneself and satisfy one's needs. And having these experiences also gives them a very healthy relationship with money, and also the understanding that there is no instant gratification, and the appreciation that has to be there to appreciate the work necessary for this to happen. To understand that society is conceived of as work. It's about associate with others, collaborate with others, and this requires discipline. To be in a community, to experience the power of the group, but also experience the power of the collective knowledge that comes with being a group, and how important cooperation and collaboration is for this group to function in a harmonious and respectful way. No one, I think time is running here, right? I would tend to forget time. But, no one can be free on someone else's behalf. And, and in the end, no one can make the decisions that are there for us to make. So the adolescents, they need to experience what it takes to create a life they would like to live as a fully functioning, independent adult, having the knowledge that allows them to pursue whatever career they have in mind. We don't want to prepare children and adolescents to live a life that someone else has shaped for them, which really just creates a dependency on someone else, which could be someone else with a value system in a direction that could go either way. And of course, this Montessori said this, in the long run will be a threat to democracy. Montessori, she saw the child as a hope and promise for mankind. And therefore she had this great vision of how humanity, how we can live together with mutual understanding, in solidarity, in peace. But she also understood that in order for this to happen, since we adults seem too set in our ways to be able to change, she said it has to start with the children and the adolescents. And I do think it does. And if we can then supply these environments that will help them in their support in these directions, I think that is our task. And I think this is the way we need to go. And Montessori, she saw that, and she was brilliant in the way that she prepared these environments and understood what kind of work it takes by the children and adolescents to arrived at that vision. So maybe I should stop here, because I have to rely on Niti here to tell me, because I think your time is a bit different from mine. So
Yes, Jenny, we are a few minutes over time, but we really didn't want you to stop, but we have to. It was such a pleasure. I'm sure all of us, for those of you who are listening to Jenny for the first time, I can understand to her, and there is so much to learn from her and from her course. Those of you who joined us late, I would like to share this again, that Jenny is taking the next course soon in June in Chennai with Supraja Training Center. Those of you who are interested, please get in touch with the center and get to know the details. Having done this course myself, I highly recommend people to consider it, because it is transformational, and to be able to work with children the way we should, we definitely need inner transformation to begin with. And specifically the residential experience, the module 2, which you would experience, I think is really necessary for anybody who is working with adolescents, to get this clarity in our own life, as Jenny mentioned about work and of society. So do consider and get to know the details and share with others who might be interested. I would request Rupu, if you would like to say something here, Rupu, about that course. Rupu, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Yes.
It's so lovely to be here and to hear you, Jenny. And along with all the very many people who have joined us this morning, I'd like to say on behalf of IMF that it's been a pleasure collaborating with Sketches Montessori School and bringing this program to you. I think to hear these principles, just to hear Jenny talk about the goals of education as affectionate, kind, helpful children. For me, that itself was such a inspiring thing to hear this morning. What are we looking for in education became so clear. It became so clear that, Montessori education, what are we working for? So thank you for that very inspiring talk, Jenny. For us, actually, I'm personally in a course in Sweden at the moment, working under Jenny, and it's been such a pleasure to hear her yesterday in class and hear her again this morning. So I see so many friends and so many people here who maybe future collaborators with all of us. So I look at the 200 people here this morning to take these goals forward. In India, we are looking to reach and touch more families and more children. And so I think that it's been a wonderful morning to be here. And Niti, I know that you and Nishant are trying to bring these ideas to the north and work in the NCR region. That's a new term for me, that Delhi NCR region. And I hope that all across North India, we will see the flowering of this philosophy. And, all the schools that are already working on that, Magic Years has been working with that for so long. And so I think if we all collaborate, we can help this to flower all across our country and reach more and more children. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Nishant. Thank you, Niti.
Thank you so much, Ritu. Thank you for all of you to be here. I'm sure this was very useful and inspiring.
Thank you all. And it was lovely to see so many faces and so many familiar faces.